welcome to the Cult Connections Review Show. I'm your host, Ian Graham, and every episode I will be joined by a guest to review what's new in the world of film and TV. So whatever takes my fancy, hopefully takes your fancy too. Come and join us on the Cult Connections Review Show. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Cult Connections Review Show. It is Moon Knight episode 5, so that means I am of course joined by Nathan. How are you, Nathan?
I'm very good, thank you, Ian. What about yourself?
Yeah, I am absolutely fine. Unlike the characters in this episode, unfortunately, they are far from fine. So it is the penultimate episode, The Asylum. And we'll just get straight there down there to it, Nathan. But there's a couple of little flashbacks, but we see Harrow, or Dr. Harrow, I think as we should call him. So Dr. Harrow is talking to Mark in the asylum. And there's a comic throwback here, Mark, there, Nathan, isn't there?
Yeah, straight away. So he says that he's a patient of Putnam Psychiatric Hospital, or Putnam, don't know how you say that, in Chicago. So this is the medical facility from the comic book series that I kept alluding to last week, the 2016 run, where where Moon Knight is essentially in the asylum, and he's kind of. The story is that Moon Knight isn't real and never happened, and he's actually a crazy person. So that's pretty much where they've got this sort of afterlife story from. They've twisted it from there, so it's quite interesting to throw that straight in there for us. So keeping a bit of consistency with the character.
Yeah, good. So we see the Dr. Harrow, and he's asking Mark about his their memories. You know, he's sort of digging a bit. Mark starts to get they're sort of agitated. The Billy and the Bobby turn up again, so they're fine apparently in this world. So they're fine, and Mark gets injected with a huge needle right in the neck. I don't know what sort of the medicine that is.
Well, you say Mark. I'm gonna challenge your ears here a bit, Ian, because
is it Stephen?
Mark is from. It's not Stephen. Mark is obviously from Chicago, Illinois, but I'm going to challenge you here because when Mark stood up and grabbed that sharp thing, that accent did not sound. He went a little bit New York on us. He went a little bit. I don't think that was Mark. I don't think that was Stephen. I think that was the one they keep alluding to, the one that is probably going to end up being from the comics, Jake. But I don't think that was either of them.
Right. Okay. I'm going to have to go back now. Now, I've watched the episode there twice. I'm going to have to go back and watch it at the start again just to pick that up. Wow. Okay. I'm quite happy to go with that. I am just going to make a little point
if I'm wrong
about this.
Then you're going to say tweet at us at Cult Connections and let me know if I'm wrong. But there was an accent change there.
There was an accent there change. Okay. And I do have a good few they're sort of American their listeners as well. So please do if we have picked up on their sort of accent that's here, or we have picked it up wrongly, please do let us know. So that bit's superb. Now I am just gonna mention there, Nathan, the massive the syringe and the needle and the huge amount of the medicine that is in it that's going into his neck. And again, I am just going to say, look, having worked in the mental health, the hospitals, I have never given anyone a injection of that size. So this is very much scary movie type. There's sort of medicines going on there here. Honestly, I mean, to be fair, I have actually given quite a few people their injections when they're getting agitated, but yeah, not absolutely huge ones like that. So anyway, bam, and we're back to Mark, Stephen, and the hippo, or Towerette, I think is how they pronounce it.
I think you're right on that. I think I got it wrong last week because I kept calling it Toweret, but yeah, Toweret seems to be the right pronunciation. So yeah, I do
Uh-huh.
apologise for getting that wrong.
I think we're okay for that one.
Yeah,
But so Towerette tells them that they're dead and they are in the Egyptian underworld. Um, and we see they're on there's a lovely shot here, lovely sort of visuals on this boat that's going through the sand. So they're the desert, and they are traveling to the field of reeds. Uh-huh.
one interesting point from this conversation is that it's apparently we've seen a couple of afterlives in the MCU, but it is sort of just Toweret goes out of her way just to kind of tell the audience that no, it really depends on what you believe in, because she mentions the ancestral plane. The
Hmm.
ancestral plane, for those that aren't as up to date on their MCU, is the afterlife in Black Panther. So the scene where T'Challa goes there and the panther's in the tree, and
Hmm.
that sort of scene. So the MCU is obviously just wide open for whatever, as it should be, because it's a big
Hmm.
crazy world full of everything. But it's yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of telling us there's a lot of afterlives, and
But again, I suppose that does sort of tie in and make sense, because in the MCU there are also a lot of their god type sort of figures. So um,
it's gonna be fun if they all fight one day. That's what we want.
um, well, you know what? If it leads to that, and I wouldn't be surprised if it actually does. So they are there dead, and what we find out is that the tower, it has to weigh their hearts, um, and they have to balance the scales. So she rips their heart. Well, or she takes them out. I mean, thankfully we don't get any sort of gory bits here, but she's got their hearts and she's a way to weigh them. Um, but then this also ties in with sort of earlier and sort of last week as well, about how the organs are stored in the tombs, and I suppose that all all sort of ties in, doesn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. The consistency is great. As it always is with the MCU. But yeah, putting the hearts out. The hearts are kind of white and dried up, as I imagine they would be if you were actually dead and had no blood in you. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they've got to balance these scales, and to do that, they've got to go through a lot of memories and find out where the imbalance is.
Hmm.
For those people with a keen eye, the QR code is back, and the QR code was on the door when they first looked out the window to see Mark standing on the side of the street, and
Ah.
which later we found out to be the funeral bit outside his mum's funeral. But it's the first time where he's kind of going, "What are you walking down this street for?" And Mark's just like, "Oh, you
Yeah.
expect me to remember every street?" But there's a QR
Hmm.
code on there, and if you scan it, it takes you to a copy of Moon Knight issue 1 from 1980.
So do that.
Yeah, do
Please
that if
do
you
that.
if you've
Yeah.
got a good TV that you can pause on. If good
Yeah.
resolution for a QR code.
um. So we see them going into the asylum's, the sort of lunchroom, dining room, and it's full of dead people, and what we find out is that actually it's full of people Mark said killed. He's kind of saying, "Oh, that's a so and so, and that was the so and so." So they're all there. Um, then scarily we see a young there boy just at the side of the group. So we see the young there boy, and Stephen follows him, and we are now in Mark's their childhood. So
Yeah, one thing we kind of realized very rapidly in this episode is, and it's in line again with the comics, is what we haven't known is who's the main person. Is it Mark or is it Stephen?
yeah,
And very, very quickly in this, you realize, oh, it's Mark. And
mm-hmm.
he's just taking Stevens along for the ride. We don't know what Stephen is. We do now. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll bring that up in a bit. But yeah, it's never good when there's just a kid stood in a room full of dead bodies.
Yeah, exactly. It's not nice. But we go back to the childhood. We find out that the child is Mark's their brother. So it's his younger brother, and we see Mark and his family. So his brother and his mum and his dad. So Mark and his brother are going off to play. We get the latest Gates part, so that's where that sort of comes from. That's what he says to his mum. Then they go off to so they're walking in what looks like a park, and then it's raining, and there's a cave, and Stephen follows them into the cave, and the cave is filling up with their water. Thankfully, we don't see anything here, but it is obviously they implied that Mark's brother drowns at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that would have been. It would have got a hard R if we saw some kids drown in a cave.
Exactly,
but no, we didn't get any of that. A couple of things to pick up from when they walk outside into the garden for, and I can't remember if it's Mark or if it's his brother drawing. He's actually drawing a fish with one fin. Which alludes back to Gus, the one-finned wonder from episode 1.
Yeah.
And I could hear the listeners crying out to me, Ian, who is Mark's brother? Well, let me tell you. Mark's brother in the comics is Randall Spector, a terrible name, which I think they'll change if they ever bring him back. And he doesn't die in the comics. He does nearly die. I can't remember how, and I didn't write it down, so don't ask me. And he ends up going on to be Shadow Knight, and is actually one of Mark's greatest adversaries and biggest sort of rivals. And Shadow Knight thought that he should have been Khonshu's avatar, and in the end, Moon Knight, as in Mark, does end up killing his brother. So you can go read the Shadowland series if you want to find out more about Randall. Now, he might be called Randall because his mum did call him Roro. So maybe.
Yeah,
I just think I don't know what your opinion is, but I think Randall's a rubbish name.
Oh, well, I think Randall's a great name there, Nathan. They're one of my favourite podcasts is actually hosted by a Randall, and Mr. Randall Parker is coming on the show very soon. So,
oh, sorry, Randall. It just reminds me of the bad guy in Monsters Inc. So the bad lizard, or whatever he is.
But it's an interesting point, though, Nathan, that you make here. So Marlene obviously got there changed to their Layla. Yeah, who knows what they will do? I suspect that we won't see Randall again or Roro, but actually, who knows? Who knows? This is a show that could go anywhere. So
I'd be stunned if we did, because we saw so much of Mark's backstory in here, and they had the funeral and everything. I'd be shocked as all hell, and the only way it could be done is if one of the gods decided to bring Randall back. I guess because they've left it so late. Because we saw Mark as kind of a teenager as well.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So someone would have had to steal the body and kind of Frankenstein monster it to bring him back. So I don't know, but yeah, it was a bit gut wrenching. This whole episode was. It was very, very emotional. There wasn't a lot of action. as in not a lot of violent action, but there
No,
was plenty of
there was lots
emotional
going
action.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the better
yeah,
term. Yeah, there's lots going on, but
that's it.
no, not a
Yeah.
lot of fighting.
Well, our next scene is the wake for the funeral. So it's obviously after the funeral. It's the wake. Mark's mother. We now see that she blames him for the death. Um, then we're at one of Mark's birthdays. So his dad's got a lovely cake, but she's not there. Um, we see her drinking, and she's abusive. Um, there towards Then we see an older Mark moving out. So he's a more sort of teenager Mark, and he's decided that he's moving out. His dad's saying there to him, he's going to try and help things and blah blah blah. Well, it obviously sounds like it's far too late for that. That one's totally broken down by that point.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, and this whole time, sort of Steven's trying to convince Mark to let him keep searching and let him keep
Yeah,
looking at everything, because he tries to walk in a room after Mark walks in there, and he's like, and he just pulls him away, and that's when they end up outside. And yeah, but the
yeah.
mum has clearly had a big old breakdown at this point, and is not the mother that Stephen remembers.
She's not sort of coping at all, and yeah, not how Stephen there remembers it. And we will get, obviously there to that slightly later on, but then we're at the scene where Layla's father died. So there's the aftermath of that, and we have a wounded Mark, and he goes to this sort of temple, and then this is where the Khonshu turns up.
Yeah, and for those with eager ears and have been listening to the story, you would have heard me mention the name Bushman a lot, and we find out that that character is real, is in the MCU in some capacity. Raoul Bushman, where Mark says the line that he was working with his old CO Bushman, so CO will probably mean commanding officer, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
From there, so he is there, and this overlaps with what happened in the comics. We see the body of Dr. L. Foley, or whatever his name
Uh-huh.
is, Layla's
El
dad.
Fuli, yeah.
Yeah, and then Khonshu gives Mark a chance, and Mark is about to blow his own head off at the foot of Khonshu's tomb, or a big statue of him. And then he asks Mark if he wants to be my hands, my eyes, my vengeance, to be my final word against evildoers, to bind your very being to me and eradicate only the worst, those who deserve it. Do you want death, or do you want life? And Khonshu even says at one point that he can feel that his mind is fractured and broken.
Hmm.
So this show has really kind of shown us that Mark was broken or traumatized enough to have a fractured mind before Khonshu. In the comics,
Yeah,
it's kind
yeah.
of never really. It is in some stories presented in that way, but not often. Usually, it's he was a bit crazy, but then Khonshu being there made things significantly worse.
Hmm.
Whereas in this sort of version of the character, that we're actually just dealing with childhood trauma in a massive way.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, yeah. And we're seeing a build up of it. So,
Yeah.
and we're actually probably going to get to the worst part, just in a just in a short while, as it were. Um, so we're back to the underworld, and what we see is is lots of unbalanced their souls. So we're back on the ship, and there's all these on their balance their souls, and I took that to actually mean that in the real world, or what we think is the real world, is that their Amet is actually rising, and this is the consequences of that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they're kind of flying in and Tower even says this is evil. What's happening? The souls have just been sent here, not judged properly.
Yeah.
And Stephen and Mark are there on the boat, and they talk Tower into giving them a chance. She kind of mentions that she doesn't really have the power to do that. She can't. But the only way she can is if the scales balance and they go to the Gates of Osiris. So Osiris is the god of the dead and dead, resurrection and life, and was the ruler of the dead in the underworld. And so they start heading towards there, but they need to balance these scales, or it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, so Mark again, he gets sort of agitated about his past, his youth, and then he's back with Dr. Harrow again. Then we see Stephen and their Mark, and they're looking at young Mark's room. His mum's banging on the door, so we see that. So we see that that sort of going on, and then we're back with no. So what we're seeing is inside the room, and Mark becomes Dr. Stephen there, Grant, or he takes on this this sort of persona. So we see he has a poster for Tomb, the Buster, which is the film that we saw in the last episode. So this is obviously his favorite film, and he sort of takes on the role of the Stephen the Grant. So his accent sort of changes, and he starts sort of talking in this English accent. Then thankfully we don't see this, but we see his mum. She takes a belt, and what we do know is that she's actually beaten. So she is beaten Mark at this point.
Yeah, so Stephen's obviously a big coping mechanism, and he switches to Stephen in however that works. That's the only wording I can really use. And he's there before he's muttering to himself that it's not my mum, it's not my mum. As you say, he switches. It's like the same. It's a complete reset. He just starts tidying up. So that's it. In the comics, it's kind of just as I don't know. But in the comics, he creates Stephen because he finds out that his uncle, such close friend who he trusted, is a serial killer and a Nazi. So a sort of different take. I don't think you're ever going to get Disney to do that version. And it's, in my view, in the show, it's way more on the nose to transition as well. Like it's way more apparent. Whereas in the comics, obviously, it's a bit more crazy. It was a crazier time, so things were a bit more wild.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And Khonshu and Moon Knight had a lot more to do with it.
Yeah. But I think as well, it tells, so we've been sort of mentioning this, throughout the Nathan and throughout the show itself. So we know there is going to be the trauma here. A disassociative state is very much linked to past their trauma in the person's their life. There's a lot of evidence for that, and poor Mark is full of it. His life's been full of their trauma. So not only does his brother die, which and even though it is an accident, we know that, but he will have guilt and all sorts of their emotions anyway. However, his mother blames him for it. She rejects him. We see that she's abusive there towards him, and and not just mentally or psychologically, but she's physically abusive. So we see that. So there's a huge build up there when he's very, very young, and then he has the trauma of actually his wife's father being murdered in their front of him. So
Oh
and he
yeah,
does
you can understand how he ends up the way that he does. Obviously, he's got the
totally, yeah,
the real world stuff, which sadly there'll be people out there that can relate to this stuff as well in a
yeah,
very real way. And then you add the spin on it. There's a lot of Easter eggs in Mark's room, so I can run
hmm
through those if you want to
yeah.
try and cheer up the mood a bit. So there's a Chicago Cubs poster on the wall, which is from the comic book, so very in line with what young Mark's room looked like on there. That's where a lot of these things come from. The one finned fish drawing that was done by his brother is on the wall as well. There's a Star Wars poster. Obviously, Oscar Isaac stars in Star Wars. As I don't like Star Wars, so I don't know who he plays, and I didn't bother to look it up.
He's
So sorry.
Poe the Dameron.
Ah, okay. You
Yeah.
can see in the mirror he has a race car bed, which is in line with the Moon Knight comics as well. There's kind of a toy of what looks like some Egyptian scales, which look eerily
hmm
similar to the scales that they're currently trying to balance. There's an astronaut and a load of space stuff, which might relate to one of Mark's personalities in the comics as well, in the Jeff Lemire comics, where one of them might be an astronaut. On the Tombbuster poster, you can see the name Doug Perlin. Doug Moench and Don Perlin were the duo who created Moon Knight. So
Yeah.
a bit of a smash up there.
Yeah.
The film was produced by Timely Atlas Studios. Timely Comics predated Marvel and and published the first comic book named Marvel Comics in 1939. So, and that's it.
Whoa. Oh, that's a pretty decent list going on there, Nathan, to be fair. And thankfully, it does take us away from all of this their trauma. However, the next scene that we have is actually is the Harrow. So Stephen's talking to Harrow. I can't remember if this was the scene where he called him the Ned
I think
Flanders, because
I think was it just before that where they were
it could
arguing
have been, yeah,
in the
yeah.
corridor.
To be fair, he does look like Ned Flanders in this. He certainly does. I did like that bit, and that their comments absolutely spot on. But
I
though
think
Harrow,
just before this scene was when they left the room, and isn't that when Mark told
yeah,
Stephen that he's not real?
yeah,
Yeah, so just
yeah,
before
which
he's
would make
talking
sense,
to
isn't it?
Dr. Harrow,
Yeah,
there's a scene where basically they leave the room before the beating takes place, and that's when Mark kind of freaks out, and he's just like, "Is that what you wanted to see? That's what you were made for." So we kind of find out Mark invented Stephen, and Stephen's a figmentation of Mark's kind of fractured mind and trauma, as someone that could deal with it all, have a normal life. And Mark tells Stephen that their mum's dead, and he's been talking to nobody,
yeah,
and essentially that Stephen isn't a real person. I guess I don't know.
yeah,
It's kind of
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
What's the most real way to word it or whatever? But he's not a physical human being. He's kind of part of Mark's mind. And then
hmm
they both have kind of a breaking point, and that's when Stephen wakes up talking to Dr. Harrow.
Yeah. Uh, and he Harrow gets the phone and says, "Right, we're going to call your mum," and then Stephen himself says, "Well, actually, she's dead," and then there's a throwback to one of the earlier scenes. So it's So it's Mark's mum's funeral, and he's outside. He sees his dad at the window. That he's not going to go in. He sort of breaks down at this point. I think what we'll find out here is this is only 2 months ago as well, so it's a very short space of time from his mum's funeral to the present. So it hasn't been a long sort of time for him. And then I think this is a bit where we see just a bit where we see Mark sort of collapses, and then Stephen gets up and he walks off.
Yeah, so his dad in the comics is called Elias. But he's kind of looking out the window and sees Mark stood there exactly where we saw him earlier, next to that car. And his dad kind of ushers him in, does a little thing from the window. Mark just waves his head, takes a big swig from a hip flask, and then walks down the street, has a bit of a breakdown because she's dead. He's kind of saying he's not going to give her the satisfaction by going to the funeral. And then there's a big old cry, and that's where Stephen takes over. And we can clearly see how kind of messed up Stephen is in a way, because when he goes to talk to his mum on the phone, you can see that the phone isn't on a call screen. So who is he? He's talking to nobody, I think is what we're basically meant to believe, because the phone's unlocked, and I can't remember what you can see on the screen, but it's not a call screen. It's just like, or whatever. So either that, or he's done that thing where you don't lock your phone and your cheek starts pressing buttons.
Maybe.
So, but yeah, it's quite interesting because we can see a very sad transition, whereas we've had a lot of humor and a lot of serious, but still there's a lightheartedness to the show. But this time it's a guy deeply traumatized turning into someone that is just so away with the fairies that he's just not acknowledging what's happening around him. Like, because Stephen doesn't know where he is. He's trying to work it out, and he's talking to nobody on the phone, but pretending to.
Yeah, he's absolutely broken, isn't he? And I suppose the next sort of journey for him is actually he goes off to London, and ends up working at the museum, I suppose, which is I would imagine anyway.
Yeah, it's quite weird because he's walking around. He's like, "Oh, I think I'm in Mayfair," but you're right. He must have been in Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
So
but
not great. No. So the one thing I've got for you in this scene is that in the comics, it's Mark's father who dies. Whilst Mark, in one of the comic series, whilst Mark is being held in Putnam Psychiatric Hospital, Mark ends up resenting his father for having him admitted, and he believes that his dad was embarrassed by him. So that's why his dad was called Elias, if I didn't already say that in the comics.
Yeah.
But that,
again, I mean, that sort of ties in. I mean, we've spoken a bit about mental health now. This is a subject that is sort of close there to me. It's my work. It's what I do. And mental health as a topic, as a conversation, is something that we have a lot more freely these days. It's something that we can sort of talk about. At my age, Nathan, now I am nearly 50, and I've worked in their mental health since my early 20s. Now I've gone through that sort of journey of their stigma and not talking about mental health, and working with people who were basically locked away, for their whole sort of lives. I remember working with people who had been they sort of admitted to these old-fashioned hospitals and basically left there, and it's a big change that we've had. So I can see I can see from what you spoke about there for the comic, for Mark's father to be they're ashamed or have this sort of stigma. It does still go on, but things are a lot sort of better. Thankfully, I will end my little sort of lecture just at that point because the story does actually change a fair amount here. So so the the boat, the ship reaches the gates of Osiris, and then these sort of creatures come out from the sand, um,
Yeah, they're
and we do
unbalanced souls. I think they're called duets. Sorry if I'm saying that, if
uh-huh.
I'm misremembering, but they're essentially like the unbalanced souls to drag them because the scales haven't balanced at this point.
Hmm. Yeah.
So they start climbing aboard to drag them in because they're not deemed as being worthy to go to the field of reeds. Uh, Mark kind of steps up to try and fight these sand demons, but there's not a lot you can do against them because they're made of sand. But that's where kind of Steven steps up. He kind of thinks, well,
Hmm.
hang on, if Mark can do this, I must be able to because we're the same person.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, yeah. And he does so. We see a bit of action, and Stephen is there fighting them off, but unfortunately, they do claim him. So he gets he fought. So they drag him off the boat. He's in the sand, and he gets sort of buried in the sand, or he sort of dissolves into the sand in some way. Which leaves Mark, and the scales
Yeah.
are now balanced. So Stephen is gone, and there is balance, and um, we see a lovely shot right at the end, though there, Nathan. So Mark is standing in the field of the reeds. There's a lovely, I don't know if it's a sunrise or a sunset, but it's like the sun's at the back of him. It's a lovely sort of tranquil sort of place, and
It is, yeah. Think of the end of Gladiator, if you've not watched the
yeah,
episode, but for some reason you're listening to this review of it. So he is just standing in a field of reeds. So,
yeah.
or
Mhm.
would we call it a wheat field in this country?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if it was the wheat or not, or if it is actually reeds. It might be
Yeah,
um a watery place, so it could be reeds of some kind.
yeah.
Um,
And the last thing that I've got is episode 1, where in the
uh-huh.
museum and that little schoolgirl asks Stephen, uh, and she said, and I quote, "And did it suck for you getting rejected from the field of reeds?" And he replied, "Well, that doesn't make
Oh,
sense because I'm not dead, am I?" So
ah,
a little bit of poetry, I guess, from the MCU there. It's
big,
very sad seeing Stephen keeps trying to catch up to the boat, and then he just gets turned to,
yeah,
well, he kind of gets cast over by probably sand or something, but
yeah.
he's then frozen. So, are we saying laters gators to Stephen? Do you think?
I think we could well be saying
Yeah.
that to you. However, who knows? That's the thing. But that is, yeah. So that is episode 5, the Asylum. Whew. And that was quite an episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. It's not what I expected this show to do, but they keep delivering differences in the presentation of each show. We obviously had One Division, which was wacky and mental and very off the wall in its presentation and its design.
Hmm.
We
Yeah,
had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, very much espionage action,
yeah.
non-stop, and What If was obviously exactly what it says, but animated. And this is again very, very different. I thought it was going to be really action based with a bit of back and forth between the personalities, but they think they've over delivered on the emotion.
I think they've. I think what what they have, done, and what this episode has absolutely demonstrated there for me, then Nathan, is to take a a backstory for the character, which could be, which could be done in a very ham-fisted way, and they've actually done it really well, and they've told a story that is, relevant and asks a lot of questions, but can also sort of portray the issues here in a very sensitive sort of manner, and I've really liked that. So I think that's been really, really, really good. But what I do wonder about is we only have one episode left now, so there's one left. Um, any sort of predictions at all, Nathan? What do you think might happen?
Um, a lot, I think, is the answer, because there's a lot to tie up here. Like,
Yeah,
they haven't even. Presumably, they're going to get out the afterlife. But with one episode to go, and each episode's about, 45 minutes? They've
yeah.
not done that. So there's a lot for them to do if they're going to tie this up in one season. Now, they might not. They might not tie this up in one season. They might not do that. There's no reason they have to.
No.
I think we've got very much used to a story wrapping up and then being done and kind of ready to tell a new one. But who says they're going to wrap this up? If they are, they've got a lot to do in 45 minutes because Khonshu is still trapped. Mark is currently dead.
Yeah.
We don't know where Layla is in any way. Harrow is causing chaos somewhere. Presumably, Amit has been reborn.
Hmm.
So there might not be a world for him to go back to.
Well, that would be quite a bleak way to end things. I don't know like that. I, I really don't know. I do think that maybe I don't think that all of the things that you've mentioned are going to get sort of tied up. I don't even know if any of them will. I think I think in episode 6 we will see Amit running riot through the through through our world, as it were. Um, we might see what happened to to sort of Harrow. I'm not even sure if that's going to be a hugely positive thing for sort of Harrow. Um, that he thinks it will. I'm not sure about that. I don't think they are going to tie up any, or most of the loose ends. I think we're probably going to end up on a big sort of cliffhanger. Um, which I would be very happy with, because if there's a season there too, I think it's yeah, I would absolutely love that. So yeah, I think there's lots to go on, but I don't think they're going to wrap it up. I think they're
No,
going to leave us
I don't
wanting
think
more, Nathan.
there's too many interesting characters. Because although Ethan Hawke has been great in the short time that we've seen him, we've not seen a lot of him. So I'd be surprised if they were to get rid of him, like
Yeah, yeah.
so early doors. But no, this is very interesting, and it's an interesting week for the MCU coming up. I've got my Doctor Strange tickets. For
Hmm.
we're recording this to peel back the curtain on Monday. I've got them for this coming Saturday.
Uh-huh.
So by the time we record the next one, I presume are you seeing Doctor Strange early doors? Comes out on the
I
5th.
am.
Those
I am
don't
there,
they?
Nathan. I should be seeing it Friday. So um,
You'll know before
I,
me. So the next time we record, we will be fully aware of the ending
we
of
will
Moon
be.
Knight and have both seen Doctor
Indeed,
Strange,
indeed.
probably.
Who who knows? Who knows? Indeed. I'm also going to see it in the gimmick of 3D, so that'll be
Oh,
fun. Yeah.
lovely. I
So
don't like 3D. I
yeah.
don't get on with 3D.
No. Uh,
No, it hurts my head after a bit, and especially with these
right. Okay.
MCU movies. I remember going to see. Do you remember when they first brought back 3D and they made My Bloody Valentine in 3D? This is probably 2000. I'm gonna say 7 or 8. It was before Avatar.
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
it hurt my head really bad. And I was like, I'm never see it. I did see Avatar, but I've sworn off 3D movies since then.
Oh well. Oh well. Oh well. We can certainly mention that. But yeah. So lots to talk about. Who knows? Moon Knight may even pop up in the multiverse of their madness. Who knows? That would be
I think
amazing. Um,
that would be pretty funny.
yeah.
In the next episode of Moon Knight, Field of Reeds, and he turns around to see Wanda Maximoff.
Or Loki.
Yeah, Loki. That would be a bit.
Yeah,
That would be
that would be
wild
brilliant.
because they've not really connected
Or
it other than a few references.
yeah, or the Wolverine or something equally bonkers.
Sorry,
It's sort of Professor X or something.
something.
Who knows? Oscar Isaac's their character from X-Men, the Apocalypse. That would
Oh
be something
God, no!
else.
I don't
But
think anyone wants to remember that. I think that can stay in the afterlife. That movie.
so, so I think, Nathan, to be fair, on that note, I think thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you, Ian. We'll be back for the finale.
Exactly. I will see you next week. And thanks, everyone. Later, skaters.